Okay, so there's a disclaimer on this episode that it's literally just me reading the entire episode, and it's a lot of reading. So if you don't care about the story of the Gith Yankee and the Githzerai, and you don't specifically care what spells I'm learning from it, and you know, this backstory with Dak'kon and stuff, talking to Dak'kon, then you don't really need to watch this episode because nothing exciting happens. Also, you don't need to look at it with your eyes because I will literally just be talking and you will be staring at the same screen forever. And so, yeah. Pretend it's a book on tape. This episode is a book on tape. Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to episode 4 of me playing Planescape Torment and also, you know, talking. This episode, I might leave the bar. I know, right? It is phenomenal how much progress I'm making. This game, whoosh, rushing through stuff. Oh, look, I have 5 hit points. He'll get over it. Okay, so first, I might not leave the bar, though, because I'm going to be talking to Dak'kon. As you will, there are things I would know, Dak'kon. I hear you. Okay, can we talk about your teachings? Can you teach me anything of the art, Dak'kon? Know that the way of the people is not the same as the art that you have come to know. It is not the energy that gives strength. It is the knowing and the self that gives strength. The teachings of Zerthimon speak of such things. Would you teach me the way of Zerthimon, Dak'kon? Do you know what you have asked? The texture of Dak'kon's blade flows until it becomes a stone. To walk the path of Zerthimon, you must know of the people. The knowing of such things by one not of the people is a difficult matter. There are those not of the people who have heard the way of Zerthimon, but they do not know the way. Dak'kon, I want to know of the people that know Zerthimon's teachings. I believe there is wisdom to be learned in such things. Know that I have heard your words, and that I shall test them. To learn, you must know the people. To know the people, you must know the unbroken circle of Zerthimon. By the way, I'm definitely not getting out of here in this episode. Sorry. Dak'kon holds up the stone disc in his possession, and his spider-like fingers hook into its sides. There's a click, and the plates of the circle slide into a new configuration. He reverses the motion, stealing the stone. No, the first circle of Zerthimon is open to you. Study it, then I will hear you. Very well. I'm gonna do that. Zerthimon... Wait, what? Oh, is it in your inventory? It is. This small round stone is the unbroken circle of Zerthimon. It is made up of a series of interlocking circles that fold out from one another. The complexity of the plates and the intricacy of their links prove the text was constructed by a master artisan. Unlock the first plate, as Dak'kon showed me. You mirror the motions that Dak'kon made upon the circle, and the plates give way at your touch, the rings sliding into a new configuration. Upon the rings are a series of symbols. The script is like no writing you have ever seen. It is a series of interlocking geometries with circles predominating. Just looking at it, you know the symbols and you know you can read them. Read the first circle of Zerthimon. Know that we are the first people. Once, all was chaos. The first people were thought drawn from chaos. When the first people came to know themselves, they were chaos no longer and became flesh. With their thoughts and knowing of matter, the people shaped the first world and dwelled there with their knowing to sustain them. Yet the flesh was new to the people, and with it the people came not to know themselves. The flesh gave rise to new thoughts, greed and hates, pains and joys, jealousies and doubts. All of these fed on each other, and the minds of the people were divided. In their division, the people were punished. So basically this episode is going to be me reading out loud, because that's what it's going to be. The emotions of the flesh... Actually, you know, most of them are going to be that. But that's okay. The emotions of the flesh were strong. The greed and hates, the pains and joys, the jealousies and doubts, all of these served as a guiding stone to enemies. In becoming flesh, the first people became enslaved to those who knew flesh only as tools for their will. No, these beasts were the Illithids. The Illithids were a race that had come not to know themselves. They had learned how to make other races not know themselves. They were the tentacled ones. They lived in flesh and saw flesh as tools for their will. Their blood was as water, and they shaped minds with their thoughts. When the Illithids came upon the people were a people no more. The people became slaves. The Illithids took the people from the first world and brought them to the false worlds. As the people labored upon the false worlds, the Illithids taught them the way of the flesh. Through them, the people came to know loss. They came to know suffering. They came to know death, both of the body and mind. They came to know what it is to be the herd of another and have their flesh consumed. They came to know the horror of being made to feel joy in such things. The unbroken circle is the knowing of how the people lost themselves and how they came to know themselves again. Well, that was fun. Let's talk to Dak'kon again. There's a better way to do that somewhere, I just don't remember how. What is my will? There were things I would know. Teachings. I have read the Unbroken Circle of Zerthimon. I want to speak to you more about the way of Zerthimon. What did you come to know? Strength lies in knowing oneself. I learned that once someone does not know themselves, they are lost. They become a tool for others. You have come to know the first circle of Zerthimon. You not only see the words of Zerthimon, you have come to know them. Dak'kon holds up the circle and hooks his fingers around the edges. There is a click, and the plates of the circle slide into a new configuration. He reverses the motion, sealing the stone. Know the second circle of Zerthimon is open to you. Study it, and then I will hear your words. Oh, level up. Hold on. Shoot. I don't remember whether or not it's... What? That was strange. Oh right, I was already level 4 at one point, so I didn't get a skill point. Or a stat point. Okay, all good. It's all good. No panicking. Unlock the second circle of Zerthimon. You slide the plates into the configuration Dak'kon showed you. A new ring is revealed. The ring carries the same script as you read before, with the same geometries. You know the symbols, and know you can read them. Read the second circle of Zerthimon. You know, you could treat this like a book on tape, and like go look at other things while you're listening, and then I'll tell you when to come back and look at things. Know that flesh cannot be marked. It cannot mark steel. Know that steel may mark flesh. In knowing this, Zerthimon became free. Know that the tentacled ones were of flesh. They relied on the flesh and used it as tools for their will. One of the places where flesh served their will was the fields of husks on the false worlds of the Illithids. Fields were where the bodies of the people were cast after the Illithids had consumed their brains. When the brain had been devoured, the husks came to be fertilizer to grow the poison-stemmed grasses of the Illithids. Zerthimon worked the fields with no knowing of himself or what he had become. He was a tool of flesh, and the flesh was content. It was upon these fields that Zerthimon came to know the scripture of steel. During one of the turnings, as Zerthimon tilled the fields with his hands, he came across a husk whose brain remained within it. It had not been used yet as food, yet it was dead. The thought that one of the husks had died a death without serving as food for the Illithids was a thought Zerthimon had difficulty understanding. From that thought came a desire to know what had happened to the husk. Embedded in the skull of the husk was a steel blade. It had pierced the bone. Zerthimon realized that was what had killed the husk. The steel had marked the flesh, but the flesh had not marked the steel. Zerthimon took the blade and studied its surface. In it, he saw his reflection. It was in the reflection of the steel that Zerthimon first knew himself. Its edge was sharp, its will the wearer's. It was the blade that would come to be raised against Gith when Zerthimon made the pronouncement of two skies. I'm sure that's important, but we don't know about it yet. Zerthimon kept the blade for many turnings, and many were the thoughts he had about it. He used it in the fields to aid his work. In using it, he thought about how it was not used. The Illithids were powerful. Zerthimon had believed that there was nothing that they did not know, yet the Illithids never carried tools of steel. They only used flesh as tools. Everything was done through flesh, for the tentacled ones were made of flesh, and they knew flesh. Yet steel was superior to flesh. When the blade had killed the husk, it was the flesh that had been weaker than the steel. It was then that Zerthimon came to know that flesh yielded to steel, and knowing that, he came to know that steel was stronger than the Illithids. Steel became the scripture of the people. Know that steel is the scripture by which the people came to know freedom. Let's see. No. Oh, whatever. I'll just click. Blah blah blah, talking. Can talk about your teachings. What did you come to know? I learned that not knowing something can be a tool, just like flesh and steel, if upon encountering it, you attempt to know its nature and how it came to be. You have seen the words, and you have seen beyond them. I guess I should note who's talking if you're not looking at it. Dak'kon is talking now. Dak'kon says, you have seen the words, and you have seen beyond them. You have come to know the second circle of Zerthimon. He takes the circle, and with a deft motion, he twists one of the links so that one of the plates slides forth, but strangely enough, the stone still appears intact. He hands the plate to you. Meditate upon this teaching, and the knowing of it shall give you strength. When you have absorbed it, you shall know more. Very well, I will study this circle, yet I would still know more of Zerthimon's teachings. Dak'kon's fingers feel around the edge of the stone circle, and he twists it clockwise, the links clicking until they have settled into a new configuration. He then reverses the motion, resettling the stone. The next circle of Zerthimon is open to you. Study it, then I will hear your words. Alright, let's see here. So I got basically a spell scroll from the second circle, which is the spell Scripture of Steel. Blah blah blah. Wow, it says the whole story. I don't remember what it does.
It's in my spell book.
But it's in my spell book. Okay, there we go. +1 to hit and save. So it's basically bless. Yeah. Except for mages. Alright, now time to read more of the Unbroken Circle. You know, this might be more than an episode. Wow. Excellent. Unlock the third circle. Blah blah blah. Read the third circle. Zerthimon labored many turnings for the Illithid Arlathi, twice deceased, and his partnership... Okay. Zerthimon labored many turnings for the Illithid Arlathi, twice deceased, and his partnership in the cavernous heavens of the false worlds. His duties would have broken the backs of many others, but Zerthimon labored on, suffering torment and exhaustion. It came to pass that the Illithid Arlathi, twice deceased, ordered Zerthimon before him in his many vain Galleria. He claimed that Zerthimon had committed slights of obstinance and cowardice against his partnership. The claim had no weight of truth, for Arlathi only wished to know if flames raged within Zerthimon's heart. He wished to know if Zerthimon's heart was one of a slave or of a rebel. Zerthimon surrendered to the Illithid punishment rather than reveal his newfound strength. He knew that were he to show the hatred in his heart, it would serve nothing, and it would harm others that felt as he. He chose to endure the punishment, and was placed within the pillars of silence, so that he might suffer for a turning. Lashed upon the pillars, Zerthimon moved his mind to a place where pain could not reach, leaving his body behind. He lasted eternity, and when he was brought before Arlathi twice deceased, he gave gratitude for his punishment to the Illithid, as was custom. In so doing, he proved himself a slave in the Illithid eyes while his heart remained free. By enduring and quenching the fires of his hatred, he allowed Arlathi twice deceased to think him weak. When the time of the rising came, Arlathi was the first of the Illithid to know death by Zerthimon's hand and die a third death. And that is that story. Let's see here. Let's talk to Dak'kon and say, hey, I understand it. Because I do. Well, sort of. Talk about your teachings. I've read it. Dak'kon says, what did you come to know? And the Nameless One says, endure. In enduring, grow strong. The words you speak seem to strike Dak'kon strangely. As you speak them, his forehead creases, then resettles into its normal passive expression. Dak'kon says, your will has brought you the knowing of the third circle of Zerthimon. With this knowing, I impart this to you. He takes the circle, and with a deft motion, he twists one of the links, so one of the plates slides forth. He hands the plate to you. Meditate upon its teachings, and the knowing of it shall give you strength. Is there more you can teach me? Says the Nameless One. As you ask the words, you suddenly notice that Dak'kon isn't looking at you. He is holding the Unbroken circle in his hands, studying it. His blade has taken on the same texture as the Unbroken circle, and Dak'kon suddenly seems older somehow. Dak'kon? Dak'kon's black eyes rise from the circle and look at you. Know that I did not believe you would come to know the teachings of the circle. It is a difficult path you will walk in learning the way of Zerthimon. Is your mind focused on this matter? Yes, I wish to learn more. Dak'kon's fingers feel around the edges of the stone circle, and he twists it clockwise, the links clicking until they have settled into a new configuration. He then reverses the motion, resetting the stone. The next circle of Zerthimon is open to you. Study it, and then I will hear your words. But first I'm going to memorize the spell!
It's in my spell book.
What is that one? I submerged the will. Blah blah blah. Armor class and saving throw bonuses. Excellent. Instead of attack and saving throw bonuses. And I believe they'll probably stack because in this edition pretty much everything does. Oh, wait, I don't want to talk to Dak'kon again yet. I want to read the Unbroken Circle of Zerthimon. Unlock the 4th circle. Read the 4th circle. Know that the rising of the people against the Illithid was a thing built upon many 10 turnings of labor. Many of the people were gathered and taught in secret the ways of defeating their Illithid masters. They were taught to shield their minds and use them as weapons. They were taught the scripture of steel, and most importantly, they were given the knowing of freedom. Some of the people learned the nature of freedom and took it into their hearts. The knowing gave them strength. Others feared freedom and kept silent. But there were those that knew freedom and knew slavery, and it was their choice that the people remained chained. One of these was Vilquar. Vilquar saw no freedom in the rising, but opportunity. He saw that the Illithid had spawned across many of the false worlds. The worlds numbered so many that their vision was turned only outwards to all they did not already touch. Vilquar's eye saw that much took place that the Illithid did not see. To the rising, the Illithid were blinded. Vilquar came before his master, the Illithid, Zigitaris, with the knowing of the rising. Vilquar added to his chains and offered to be their eyes against the rising. In exchange, Vilquar asked that he be rewarded for his service. The Illithid agreed to his contract. At the bonding of the contract, a dark time occurred. Many were the betrayals Zilquar committed, and many were the people that the Illithids fed upon to stem the rising. It seemed that the rising would die before it could occur, and the Illithid were pleased with Vilquar's eye. It was near the end of this dark time when Zerthimon came to know Vilquar's treacheries. In knowing Vilquar's eye, Zerthimon forced the rising to silence itself, so that Vilquar might think at last his treacheries had succeeded, and that the rising had fallen. He knew that Vilquar's eye was filled only with the reward he had been promised. He would see what he wished to see. With greed beating in his heart, Vilquar came upon the Illithid Zigitaris, and spoke to his master of his success. He said that the rising had fallen, and that the Illithids were safe to turn their eyes outward once more. He praised their wisdom in using Vilquar's eye, and he asked them for his reward. In his greed blindness, Vilquar had forgotten the knowing of why the people had sought freedom. He had lost the knowing of what slavery meant, and he had forgotten what his Illithid masters saw when they looked upon him. And so Vilquar's betrayal of the people was ended with another betrayal. Vilquar came to know that when Vilquar's eye had nothing left to see, Vilquar's eye was useless. The Illithid gave to Vilquar his reward, opening the cavity of his skull and devouring his brain. Vilquar's corpse was cast upon the fields of husks, so his blood might water the poison-stemmed grasses. Wonderful. The Illithid are such nice people. Alright, so we'll talk about the teachings. I've read, what did you come to know? When one chooses to see only what is before them, they see only a part of the whole. They are blind, and just as Vilquar was blinded by his promised reward, so were the Illithids blinded to the true rising. For when they heard Vilquar's words, they turned their sight outwards again, didn't they? And the rising was free to strike. Dak'kon. Know that you speak truly. Vilquar's eye blinded both Vilquar and the Illithids. The tentacled ones thought the rising would be no more. When the rising occurred, the ground drank deep of Illithid blood. So it was victory born from treachery. It is a curious lesson. Why would it be part of the teachings of Zerthimon? Dak'kon's blade bleeds into dead night black and his voice deepens. For a moment, you think he's angry, but you're not so sure. There is much about the way of Zerthimon and his path that is difficult to know. And then the Nameless One. Do you know why Vilquar's eye is part of the way of Zerthimon? Dak'kon. It is part of the telling of how our people came to know freedom. It lets us know that there are those, even among the people, who are not of the people, and that even in the greatest treachery, a greater knowing may be achieved. You've come to know the fourth circle. Alright. Next circle is open to me. First I'm gonna learn a spell. That's not what I want to use.
It's in my spell book.
Of course it's in my spell book. I'm awesome. Alright, let's see here. Vilquar's Eye is the name of this spell. It blinds a person. Which makes sense. Alright. Time to read the next part of the Unbroken Circle. The fifth circle. Read the fifth circle of Zerthimon. Zerthimon was the first to know the way of freedom, yet it was not that he that first came to know the way of rebellion. The knowing of rebellion came to the warrior Queen Gith, one of the people. She had served the Illithid upon many of the false worlds as a soldier, and she had come to know war and carried it in her heart. She had come to know how others might be organized to subjugate others. She knew the paths of power, and she knew the art of taking from the conquerors the weapons by which they could be defeated. Her mind was focused, and both her will and her blade were as one. The turnings in which Zerthimon came to know Gith, Zerthimon ceased to know himself. Her words were as fires lit in the hearts of all who heard her. In hearing her words, he wished to know war. He knew not what affected him, but he knew he wished to join his aid to Gith. He wished to give his hate expression and share his pain with the Illithid. Gith was one of her people, but her knowing of herself was greater than any Zerthimon had ever encountered. She knew the ways of flesh, she knew the Illithids, and in knowing herself, she was to know how to defeat them in battle. The strength of her knowing was so great that all those that walked her path came to know themselves. Gith was but one. Her strength was such that it caused others to know their strength. And Zerthimon laid his steel at her feet. Excellent. That was a much shorter section. 5th circle. Talking to Dak'kon. What did you come to know? There is great strength in numbers, but there is great power in one. For the strength of the will of one may gather numbers to it. There is strength not only in knowing the self, but knowing how to bring it forth in others. You have come to know the 5th circle of Zerthimon. With this knowing, I impart this to you. He takes the circle, and with a deft motion, he twists one of the links so that one of the plates slide forth. Alright. New spell. So many spells. Power of 1.
Spellbook.
Power of 1 is excellent. A 2nd level spell. Something I wanted. Also, it gives you strength based on the target's class. Can't make you stronger than 20, which is a pretty high strength in this. Alright. Ironically, it gives warriors the most bonus, but they probably don't need it. Circle. You slide the plates into the configuration Dak'kon showed you. Read the 6th circle. Upon the blasted plains, Zerthimon told Gith that there cannot be two skies. In the wake of his words came war. Upon the blasted plains, the people had achieved victory over their Illithid masters. They knew freedom. Yet before the green fires had died from the battlefield, Gith spoke of continuing the war. Many, still filled with the bloodlust in their hearts, agreed with her. She spoke not merely of defeating the Illithids, but destroying all Illithids across the plains. After the Illithids had been exterminated, they would bring war to all other races they encountered. In Gith's heart, fires raged. She lived in war, and in war she knew herself. All that her eyes saw, she wanted to conquer. Zerthimon spoke the beginnings of that which was against Gith's will. He spoke that the people already knew freedom. Now they should know themselves again, and mend the damage that had been done to the people. Behind his words were many other hearts of the people who were wary of the war against the Illithid. Know that Gith's heart was not Zerthimon's heart on this matter. She said that the war would continue. The Illithid would be destroyed. Their flesh would be no more. Then the people would claim the false worlds as their own. Gith told Zerthimon that they would be under the same sky in this matter. The words were like bared steel. From Zerthimon came the pronouncement of two skies. In the wake of his words came war. And then we talk to Dak'kon and tell him what we've learned today. The Nameless One. I know that Zerthimon's devotion to the people was such that he was willing to protect them from themselves. He knew the Illithids had come not to know themselves in their obsession with control and domination. So he chose to stop Gith before she carried the people to their deaths. There must be balance in all things, or else the self will not hold. Dak'kon, you have seen the words and know them. And then I get 2 spells. Oh? No. I get 2 plates, but I only get 1 of them. for me. Then the Nameless One says, Dak'kon, is that second plate for you? Dak'kon falls silent. His blade has ceased shimmering, the film freezing upon its surface. He is staring at the second plate, paralyzed. Do you know the sixth circle? Dak'kon looks up. Black eyes do not meet your gaze. No, there is nothing more I may teach you. You know the way of the people as the people know it, and it shall give you the direction by which you may know yourself. The Nameless One responds, That's not what I asked. Do you know the sixth circle, or not? Dak'kon is silent for a moment, then speaks, his voice slow and careful. It has come to pass that I do not know the sixth circle of Zerthimon. Once I knew it, but I know now I only saw the words. Dak'kon's eyes stare through you, that is all. It is my path that I no longer know the way of Zerthimon. Dak'kon, there is one other thing I would know. Why is Vilquar's eye in the circle of Zerthimon? It seems strange. It tells of how the people benefited from a treachery from their own. It seems... Dak'kon's eyes flash. I have told you it is part of the telling of how the people came to know freedom. Do you not listen? His voice flattens, as if he was reciting a passage from memory. It tells the people that even in the greatest treachery, a greater knowing may be achieved. The Nameless One. It doesn't sound to me like you believe that. I think there's another reason Vilquar's eye is in the circle of Zerthimon. It is set there because of the sixth circle and the pronouncement of two skies. It's there to justify Zerthimon's treachery to the people upon the blasted plains. Dak'kon is silent, and his blade bleeds into a dead black, teeth rippling along the edge. The Nameless One. He divides the people upon the blasted plains, Dak'kon. He divided your race when they were on the path of victory. I would like to believe that it was because he wished to save the people from themselves, but I don't think you believe that. Dak'kon is silent for a moment, then he speaks slowly. I do not know the sixth circle as it is known to others. I fear that the third circle, the fourth circle, and the sixth circle are more closely linked than many know. It is in that knowing that I have lost myself. The Nameless One. In the third circle, Zerthimon submerged his will to deceive the Illithids. Then in the fourth circle, it speaks of the benefits of treachery. Then in the sixth circle, Zerthimon divides his people before they exterminate the Illithids. Do you think Zerthimon's words may not have been his own? Dak'kon. Know my words, and know the wound that lies upon my heart. I fear that when Zerthimon was upon the Pillars of Silence, he did not submerge his will. I fear his will was taken from him by the Illithids, and when he spoke upon the blasted plains, it was their words he spoke. I fear that what he did was not for the people's sake, but for our former masters. The Nameless One. It's possible, but know that it doesn't necessarily mean that he...
my journal.
Dak'kon. Then know this, and speak of it no more. Dak'kon's voice is like a knife. Know that I shall never know the truth. There is no resolution to this matter, for I shall never know Zerthimon's heart upon the blasted plains. His coal-black eyes glare at the stone circle in his hand. And so I do not know myself because of the unbroken circle of Zerthimon. The Nameless One. Very well, Dak'kon. We'll discuss this no more. Let's move on.
I feel stronger.
Oh yeah, level up. I'm the best. And I'm going to put it into Charisma, because I don't remember how much intelligence I'll get from other things, and so I'm just going to be cautious here. Because I'm going to be getting a bunch. Probably 5, though. So, it should be okay. But I'll put points later. And it's not like it's the last time I'll ever level up. Is it? No. No, it's not. Alright. So, first I learn the sixth circle, balance in all things.
In my spell book.
And then I give one to Dak'kon, and he learns that spell.
Has been added to my teachings.
What does balance in all things do? Ooh, it's a 3rd level spell, which I didn't have any of. Spell only affects the caster. When the caster is attacked, all hostile creatures within a 10-foot radius take equal damage. One attack per 4 levels of the caster. And you can't stack it with itself. Excellent. That is balance in all things. And then we look at the Unbroken Circle. Because the Dak'kon doesn't know where to go from there. And then I examine the plates and see if I can puzzle out any new combinations. As you examine the rings of the second circle, you find a strange link in the plate that mentions the laboring of the Gith people to achieve the rising. A new circle emerges from the link and you unlock it, pulling the plate forth so you can study it. Know that the rising of the people against the Illithid was a thing built upon many turnings. Many were the people who lived and died under Time's blade while the rising was shaped. The rising was shaped upon a slow foundation. Steel was gathered so that it might mark Illithid flesh. A means of knowing the movements of the Illithid was established. At first weak and confused, then stronger, like a child finding its voice. When the movements were known, then the Illithid were observed. In observing them, their ways of the mind were known. Ways of the Illithid were known. Many of the people were gathered and taught in secret the means to shield their minds, and the way to harness their will as weapons. They were taught the scripture of steel, and most importantly, they were given the knowing of freedom. These things were not learned quickly. The knowing of much of the ways was slow, and in all these things, time's weight fell upon all. From the knowing of one's reflection in a steel blade, to the knowing of submerging the will, to the knowing of seeing itself, all of these things and more the people built upon. In time, they came to know the whole. And that is the 7th circle. And then we talk to Dak'kon and say, hey, there was a 7th circle within the stone of Zerthimon. It spoke of the building of the rebellion against the Illithids. Dak'kon falls silent. What does this 7th circle speak of? The Nameless One. It speaks of time as an ally, not as an enemy. It says that patience can sharpen even the smallest of efforts into a weapon that can strike the heart of an empire. Your victories may be small, but over time, a greater victory may be achieved. Dak'kon is silent for a moment. Will you make this circle known to me? And I unlock the circle for him. As you take the circle and twist the links, 2 plates slide from the interior and into your hands. You have no idea where they came from, but the Unbroken Circle still seems intact. The 7th circle remains. Dak'kon watches you silently. There are 2 plates here. Perhaps we should both study them, you and I. For a moment. There's much you have come to know of the circle, and your knowing carries a greater weight than mine. Dak'kon matches your gaze. Know that your path is mine, and it shall come to pass that as you knew the way of Zerthimon from me, I shall know the way of Zerthimon from you. I'm guessing these are supposed to take, place over a much longer course as you get, higher wisdom and intelligence, because you didn't start with 18 in them and then level them up, but that is not how it works. Alright.
It's in my spell book.
7th circle is Missile of Patience.
Spell has been added to my teachings.
Which is... what level? 1st level. And then the description of the spell. Could this spell be any more useless? Cried Eelnek, Mage of Damnar, the bane of mages everywhere. Could this be the practical joke of an archmage, or a living disproof of the old prime material axiom that good things come to those who wait? And the range, duration, speed, area of effect are unknown. Excellent. I think I'm going to replace Scripture of Steel memorization with a Missile of Patience. Oh wow, I have another one. Another spell slot there. That's probably because of reading. Reign of Anger. So it's like Magic Missile. Anyway. Sorry, I was looking at a spell Dak'kon had. Back to reading! Because this is a reading session. Let's see if I can find any new combinations! As you examine the rings of the 7th circle, you suddenly become aware of a pattern, blah blah blah. And 8th circle. Know that a mind divided divides the man. The will and the hand must be as one. In knowing the self, one becomes strong. Know that if you know a course of action to be true in your heart, do not betray it, because the path leads to hardship. Know that without suffering, the rising would never have been. And the people would never have come to know themselves. Know that there is nothing in all the worlds that can stand against unity. When all know a single purpose, when all hands are guided by one will, and all act with the same intent, the planes themselves may be moved. A divided mind is one that does not know itself. When it is divided, it cleaves the body in two. When one has a single purpose, the body is strengthened, and knowing the self, grows strong.
What is your will?
Then we talk to Dak'kon. There was an 8th circle within the stone of Zerthimon. It spoke of division of the mind and the importance of focus. What does the 8th circle speak of? Dak'kon asks. It also speaks of focus and discipline, about how not knowing oneself can physically divide the man. It also speaks of the weaknesses that division caused. It seems to me that it tells one to not only know themselves and take strength from that, but that your focus can reveal weakness in your enemy. Dak'kon is silent for a moment. Will you make this circle known to me? There are 2 plates here. We should both study them, you and I. I think when you know the 8th circle, perhaps you will know Zerthimon's heart when he made the pronouncement of 2 skies. His words were not those of the Illithids, but of the people. Dak'kon stares at the plates, his eyes flickering over the geometries upon them, then looks up and matches your gaze. His blade bends, shifts, until the shimmering you noticed before has become a silver glow. He seems stronger, somehow.
In the teachings of Zerthimon, I have become stronger.
And he just got experience, 1 strength, 2 dex, and 2 con. Yeah! This is what talking is for, man. Dak'kon says, know that when death comes for you, know that I shall meet its blade with mine. Know that when all dies around you, know that I shall live for your sake. The Nameless One. When we die, Dak'kon, it shall be the same death. It shall be the pronouncement of 2 deaths as one.
I feel stronger.
And I leveled up 2. Excellent. So we'll start with Dak'kon.
My blade has changed.
Indeed, your blade has changed. And now gives him bonus spells. Let's give him a... Wow, a lot of bonus spells because he got a level 2. Give him a Missile of Patience, a Vilcourt's Eye, another Missile of Patience. He still doesn't know 3rd level spells, though. He'll get there eventually. He's multi-class fighter mage, because you're not seeing it. So I tell you that. Alright, I leveled up. I got hit points. Excellent. More charisma, because we want 15 of that. Well, I want 15 of that. It's probably not necessary. Alright. And then the spell, Zerthimon's Focus.
It's in my spell book.
Spell has been added to my teachings.
And Zerthimon's Focus is 3rd level. When cast, chances of a critical attack are raised. Excellent. Can always use more critical attacks. And then the last circle. Nope. Apparently I don't know how to get to it yet. So, we'll save that for another day. And, yeah. So I pretty much stood around. But this has been a book on tape reading of Planescape Torment. I hope you enjoyed it.